Teenagers have always had it kind of rough. The communists scared them. So did their own government. They lived through segregation, protested unpopular wars. They had to deal with big tobacco and questionable fashion trends. But then again, those were the good old days. Today's teens have it a bit tougher. They will inherit problems set in motion by previous generations. Yet as a society, we fail to provide them with the resources and skills necessary to combat these issues. That is why the George Milton Group has created the Teen Think Tank, an extracurricular program for exceptional high schoolers that are looking for a way to make their world a better place. For more information on how the Teen Think Tank can help today's students solve tomorrow's problems, visit georgemiltongroup.com/think tank. All right, everybody. Welcome to the George Milton Group Think Tank information session. My name is Matt DeSantis. I am the president and founder of the George Milton Group. I am joined by my colleague and advisory board member, Kelly Nagle. Kelly, give everybody a little wave.
Hi, everyone.
And appreciate you guys coming out. I know you're busy. I know you've got a lot going on. So for you to take some time out and chat with us about the George Milton Group, the Teen Think Tank, and an extracurricular program for exceptional students, it means a lot to us. I'm going to talk a little bit about what we hope to accomplish today. I know your time is valuable. I know that it is a school night. So I want to give you a sense of what you can expect, how much time you can expect to be handling that, and what our general course of action is going to be. The presentation is going to be approximately 40 to 45 minutes. We're going to cover basic intros. We're going to do a brief overview of public policy, define exactly what public policy is. We'll define a think tank. We're going to talk about its practical applications in our society. We're going to talk about the Teen Think Tank. Oddly enough, we will cover that in the Teen Think Tank information session. We're going to talk about our upcoming programs. We're going to tell you how and why you should get involved in this program. Then we're going to answer your questions. If you could hold questions to the end, that would be great. If you want to remember them, throw them up in the chat and we will get to them as we go, just to kind of keep things on point and on pace. If you're keeping score at home or you're a visual learner, we're going to cover 11 slides. That's it, just 11 slides. But one of those slides is a picture, and one of those slides just says questions. So it's really just 9 slides. If you can stick with me on 9 slides, I promise you, it will be worth it. One disclaimer, we are recording this presentation for educational purposes, our educational purposes. It's important for us to understand how to get better at doing this. It's important for us to understand what works and what doesn't work. And we like to review this information after the presentation to hopefully improve upon the presentation. But we will not be using any of your video, images, voices, contributions, etc. We're going to edit all that out. Everybody cool with that? Just give me nod, thumbs up, double thumbs up if you like to stay off the grid. All right, very good. I appreciate it. The George Milton Group is a strategic solutions firm. We help people solve problems. We work with courts, companies, nonprofits, communities, schools, individuals, you name it. Anybody that can have a problem, we work with them to solve those problems. But the unique aspect of our business is we don't tell people what to do. We don't come in and provide them with a list of solutions to their problems. Instead, we help them explore possible outcomes. And then we overcome the obstacles that prevent everyone from achieving those outcomes. And one of the most effective ways we do that is through our education programs and platforms that we create. Our best program and the program we are most proud of is this program right here, the Teen Think Tank, which is good because that would really stink if we invited you guys all to sit in on a presentation for a program that was total crap. And trust me, we have programs that are total crap, but I'd never make you guys sit through them. There's some other schools I'd make sit through them, but definitely not Archbishop Wood. So you guys get the cream of the crop here. You've got the best of what the George Milton Group has to offer. Excuse me. That is Matt DeSantis. He is the founder of the George Milton Group. He and I are one and the same. But that Matt DeSantis is an 18-year-old Matt DeSantis. That was taken in 1992. You can tell it's 1992 because of the double-breasted olive suit and the pompadour haircut. Those are very popular in the 80s and 90s. You can ask your parents. I guarantee that they have a picture that looks very similar to that in a drawer somewhere in the house that they don't want anybody to see. 46-year-old Matt DeSantis, the guy that you're looking at right now, is worth talking about. He deserves some props. As I mentioned, he graduated from Syracuse University, did that cum laude, got a law degree, took the bar exam. He's tutored and mentored high school students, taught college courses, has a decent to impressive professional resume. And you can check out that resume on LinkedIn. If you are familiar with LinkedIn, you can go there and request a contact with me, or you can just search me by MP DeSantis or grab that link right there. But I don't want to talk about 46-year-old Matt DeSantis. I want to go back to 18-year-old Matt DeSantis because he's the key to this conversation. He's why we're here today. When I was a teenager, there were societal problems. In fact, some of the same problems that you guys are experiencing, they've been around for a while. 1980, 1990, it looked a lot like 2020. We had racism, social injustice. We had a public health crisis in the form of the HIV/AIDS epidemic. There was war. There were drugs. We had problems. Despite the fact that I was a quote unquote smart kid, I was in a gifted and talented program. I went to a private all boys high school. I got academic scholarships. I was a high achiever. But despite all of that, I wasn't able to bridge the gap between academic growth and personal growth. The kind of personal growth that's necessary to process and deal with, and most importantly, change the very issues that I just mentioned. I was gaining knowledge, but I lacked the ability to use that knowledge in a meaningful way. I lacked the skill set to have conversations with people who were different than me. So I just hung around with people that were exactly the same. And because my experience was homogenized, both racially, economically, socially, I never was forced out of my comfort zone. I never needed to answer difficult questions. So I never asked difficult questions. That's not unique. A lot of people who grew up during my time were like me, which may be why our society has such a hard time communicating, sharing ideas, and having fact-based dialogues. Not sure if you guys have noticed that, but our society has a bit of a communication gap. As an adult, I'm kind of embarrassed by that situation. I'm embarrassed that we live in a society that doesn't put productive, meaningful, congenial discourse above all else. I'm embarrassed that we don't have a society that finds tremendous value in communication skills. I'm embarrassed that we don't have a norm that perpetuates fact-based dialogue, regardless of what your personal beliefs are. So I want to help change that. But I'm not going to do that by enlightening or educating my colleagues and contemporaries. They're old dogs. They don't learn new tricks. Instead, I want to foster these skills in a generation that can actually do something with them, that can actually affect meaningful change. Spoiler alert, that generation is you guys. And that's why I founded the Teen Think Tank. The individual that's going to help me do that and accomplish those goals within the Teen Think Tank is my good friend and colleague, Kelly Nagle, and I'd like to introduce her now.
Great. Thanks, Matt. And thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. I really applaud you for taking the time out of your evening to learn how you can become future change makers. As Matt said, we've been colleagues for over 5 years, and when he brought me the idea for a Teen Think Tank, I was immediately engaged. I'm all about social justice and empowerment, and I've spent both my professional and academic careers focusing on both of these issues. So I have a bachelor's of arts in history with a minor in music from Loyola College in Maryland, and a master's in political science, United Nations, and global policy from Rutgers University, which I completed this past January. My research and my graduate career largely focused on women's rights and gender-based violence in the MENA region, that's the Middle East and North Africa region, as well as democracy, state building, and human rights. In addition to my academic work, I spent 15 years in the healthcare and healthcare nonprofit industries. Most recently, I was the executive director of Susan G. Komen North Jersey, a national, actually a global breast cancer organization. I've led teams and organizations for local chapters of national nonprofits. I've managed $1 million budgets to fund research and community programs, built successful grassroots campaigns, and advocated for access to care for underserved populations. And along with serving as a founding member of the Teen Think Tank Advisory Board, I also serve on the advisory board for the Rutgers Athletic Department's Leadership Academy, which supports student athlete development for life after sport. And one of the reasons why I'm so excited to be involved with Teen Think Tank is because, as Matt mentioned in his introduction, I believe that personal growth leads to social change. And I believe that achieving real change requires being informed by evidence-based research, exposure to diverse backgrounds and opinions, and cooperation. One of the other reasons I said yes to building the Teen Think Tank with Matt is because I believe think tanks are incredibly valuable to policymakers and our understanding of critical issues. So let's take a moment to take a macro view of think tanks before we talk about the Teen Think Tank. So what is a think tank? The dictionary definition is an institute, corporation, or group organized to study a particular subject, such as a policy issue or scientific problem, and provide information, ideas, and advice. Think tanks are a form of collective intelligence that conducts evidence-based research on topics such as social policy, political strategy, economy, foreign affairs, etc., to form solutions that bridge the gap between problems and issues facing our world and the policies and legislation that can fix them. On your screen, you'll see a few examples of well-known think tanks. Most are nonpartisan, but as I've indicated, some can lean left or right, conservative or liberal. So why are think tanks important? Well, the research of think tanks inform legislators and the public on important topics. So policymaking is complicated, it can come with unintended consequences, and it impacts everybody in society. So this is why having evidence-based independent research to inform policy decisions and the shaping of policy decisions is so important. Another question, why are think tanks important to students now? You're impacted by the policies that are being created and will be created by elected officials. So why not start learning how to shape these policies now so you can have a stronger voice in how your future is impacted? Additionally, think tanks look for specific skills in their employees and really skills that are transferable to any profession that you want to go into. But skills such as critical thinking, research, reading and writing, analysis and conceptualization, communication, and working with others. These are important skills, and as we'll discuss a little bit later in the presentation, we've designed Teen Think Tank to teach and develop these skills among our participants so you are ahead of your peers moving into the next phase of your education and eventually your career and perhaps into the think tank world if that is where you're drawn to further down the road.
All right, thanks, Kel. All right, let's check back in real quick. By show of hands, a nod, a thumbs up, dab, whatever. Who's interested in the following as either an educational path, a career path, or just a subject of interest. Government, economics, political science, law, technology, scientific research, culture. Very good, right?
So many hands and thumbs up.
A think tank is a perfect place to explore those interests and pursue your passions. Unfortunately, the typical model of a think tank does not provide access to individuals until they are well established in those particular disciplines. It's not a place you go to explore those interests, right? They are bodies that are set in motion by experts in those fields, and they are doing research on policy. They're not inviting newbies to learn about those particular areas and letting individuals develop their expertise before they get there. The teen think tank, on the other hand, is meant just for that purpose. We are creating this exercise, this endeavor, in the model of a traditional think tank, but our goal will be to allow individuals to explore these areas and start to build their expertise, their authority from a very early age. Like a traditional think tank, we want to explore, critique, and create policy surrounding the issues that we just mentioned. But we want to put that policy in the hands of the generation that will have to live with it for the next 60 or 70 years. So in order to do that, we're going to recruit the best and brightest high school students and invite them to form the inaugural class of the Teen Think Tank. And here's how it's going to work. It's a merit-based enrollment program. You're all going to be invited to apply based on a pre-screening and based on your academic success. But enrollment is going to be limited to the top 8 or 12 students who apply that based on a number of objective criteria. That criteria is going to look very similar to high school admission criteria, honors program admission criteria, scholarship selection, first choice college admission criteria. It's going to be an objective list, and we're going to look at the individuals and we're going to find the folks that best meet the profile of a high achieving student who has the desire to succeed in this environment. Now, just by way of bookkeeping, the application process is going to open on November 1st, but tomorrow, Saturday at the latest, we'll send you guys some information on how to apply under our early enrollment program. As I mentioned, you guys have all been invited to this info session because you are individuals we would like to see apply. And we'll email you those details, and it'll have a full-on instructions on what to do next. But be assured, this is a merit-based program where we want to see the best of the best students available. In order to accomplish that, we are going to administer this 100% virtually. That does two things. One, first and foremost, it keeps everybody safe. I know everybody's back to school or opening up in some form or another, but really, you guys have spent the last 6 months perfecting distance learning. So we're going to let you flex your virtual skills, and we're going to conduct this in an online manner. But just as importantly, by opening it up to a virtual format, we are increasing the geographical demographic in which we can reach. And essentially, this becomes a global program. If there is a high achieving student somewhere in this world, they can participate in this program because we are going to do it virtually. Very similar to college in that sense. We want to bring as many different backgrounds, as many different strengths, as many different perspectives as possible together in one place to trade ideas, because it will increase our understanding of one another. It will increase our communication skills. Therefore, it will lead to better dialogue. Therefore, it will lead to better solutions. The coursework itself is very much like a college course. It runs about 12 weeks. It's about 36 contact hours. We're going to do about 3 hours a week. There'll be two 90-minute sessions. We're leaning towards Tuesday and Thursday, but a Monday, Wednesday model also works, very much like your traditional college coursework. In addition to the 36 contact hours that we're going to have, there'll be independent study, there'll be assignments, there'll be online collaboration. We're going to use Google Classroom and Google Tools. So there will be study rooms and assignment boards and opportunities for you guys to come together outside of the contact hours and work on projects and work on assignments and have conversations and really build your communal dialogue. As I mentioned, it's very similar to a traditional college template, and it's a commitment, but we think the payoff is legit. And we'll talk about some of the payoff and the benefits in a bit. But we wouldn't be doing this if we didn't think that this was the best course of action for students who are in your position. Speaking of college, the traditional college template, the way you choose your think tank work is very similar to the way you would choose your classes in college. And I hope you start to see a pattern developing here. Let's say that you're interested in environmental issues. Well, you'd go to the think tank website and you'd scroll through our catalog of environmental offerings. And maybe one session we're offering a research group on climate change. Maybe the next session we're going to have a group on renewable energy. Maybe one session we're going to be offering them both at the same time. Nothing prevents you from joining more than one think tank at a time. Then maybe you go down the road and you find out, you know what, you like environmental issues and politics. And it just so happens that we're offering a research group on the Green New Deal. Our goal is to provide our students with access to as many subjects as they find valuable. Provide them with as many subjects and learning initiatives that they deem necessary to move on to the next phase of their academic career. So over the next 2 to 3 years, we're going to be developing programs that create research cohorts that explore almost any major challenge that you are facing in society today. Things like racial injustice, gender inequality, public health, you name it. If there's a societal issue that's creating obstacles for teens, we plan to have a research group and explore that issue in a way that's meaningful and practical. In addition, if there's not a social issue or a community issue that we don't offer that you would find valuable, you say, hey, Matt, I got this idea and I've got a group of students who are very passionate and interested in fill in the blank. Well, we would take that cue and develop programming around that individual policy research area. By taking this approach, we attempt to help students develop the critical thinking, problem solving, decision making, and leadership skills that will not only help you prepare for a successful future, but we want to empower you right now and give you a voice today to help create meaningful conversations that will not only lead to change in the future, but spark change now. Why is any of this important? Why should you care? It would be great if you look at this and think to yourself, yeah, this is what I want to do in life, or this is the kind of society I want to live in. One where there's a free flow of ideas and dialogue. But even if you're not there yet, maybe you've just simply identified the need to develop the aforementioned skills because you know they are important for success in the future. You wouldn't be wrong in thinking that those skills are important. because some really smart people who know a lot about the evolution of talented high school students tell us they're important. In fact, the National Honor Society thinks that critical thinking, communication, and decision-making skills are so important that they put them in a list and gave them a hashtag. And you guys know, once you ascend to hashtag level, there's no turning back. It's perhaps the most important declaration that we have in society. And the National Honor Society said, hashtag future ready. These are the skills that they think that you should know. So head to the NHS website or search their social media for hashtag future ready. You might have to go to Twitter or Facebook because they don't have a TikTok page. The National Honor Society TikTok page is some independent band from Washington, but thumbs up if you're into independent music. Support local and check them out. They're probably worth a little bit of a listen. But the National Honor Society, not independent music band, lays out a laundry list of 10 touch points that they feel every student should be cognizant of as they prepare for their future. And this isn't going to be a big surprise. You guys have probably heard this already. Have a purpose, have a vision, have goals, have communication skills, work on time management, explore careers. They're all there. All right, 1 to 10. Write them down, put them on your bulletin board, look at them every day, see how you can achieve each of those as you progress through your academic career. We agree with the NHS. Those are super important concepts. That's why the Teen Think Tank wants to give you practical exercise and applications so you can learn the value of these skills, but also put them to practice. Having a workout routine on paper is great, but it doesn't do you any good unless you exercise the muscles and build muscle memory. That's what we're trying to do here. Every think tank exercise, assignment, or research group objective is going to identify, teach, and allow you to practice the communication skills, problem-solving skills, decision-making skills, and leadership skills that are a prerequisite for success. That's great in theory, but how do you access these exercises and applications? Well, that's a good question. I'm glad you asked. Starting on January 4th, we are going to launch our winter session. It's a Teen Think Tank's inaugural program, Social Protest in Sports, a Sustainable Plan. We're going to choose 8 to 12 students who work in a research cohort with a research coordinator. That individual could be me, that individual could be Kelly, that individual could be a graduate student, it could be a college professor, but it will be somebody who is in charge of leading us through the blueprint of this material. Why do we need to lead through the blueprint of this material? It's because we're actually going to research this topic. We're going to look at social protest. We're going to look at social protest in sports. We're going to look at the history of social protest. We're going to look at the present day environment and how it is affected by social protest in sports. But this isn't just a current events class. We're going to take that information and we're going to develop a framework. Framework's kind of like a plan or a how-to manual for change. We're going to develop that plan. We're going to publish that plan. That plan is going to give an overview of the history of social protest. It's going to outline ways in which athletes have used social protest to their benefit or their detriment. And it's going to develop an idea to help them do it better. It's a document that can be used by athletes, whether high school, college, or professional athletes, to show them how history and how research gives them an idea on how they can impact society in a more meaningful and effective way. It's a living, breathing document that people can read, consume, and implement if it's good enough. As part of this research, as part of this work, We're going to give you access to foundational coursework. That's leadership courses, communication courses, decision-making instruction, problem-solving instruction. There are going to be lectures, speakers, videos, podcasts, readings, discussions, panelists. We are going to deliver this message and this information in a comprehensive manner. Then we're going to take those 4 basic skills, and then we are going to research this subject as a group. We're going to form a team. There'll be team leaders. There will be team workers. There will be team followers. There'll be expediters. There will be voices. We will come together to research this fully. We will look to exploit everyone's strengths in a group dynamic. I know everybody doesn't love to work in a group, but it's true what they say. Ultimately, life is a team game. So it makes sense for us to embark on this endeavor as a group, as a research team. Then we're going to take our research and we're going to talk about it. We're going to explore positions internally. We're going to identify obstacles that we don't agree on. We're going to advocate internally for the solutions to those problems. And we're going to come up with an idea and a concept. Then we're going to bring in guest speakers and we're going to bring in experts. For this particular course, we'll have a number of speakers and experts who will be joining us, but in particular, Mike Freeman, who is a journalist. He is the author of Football's Fearless Activists. He's a former Washington Post journalist. He worked at CBS Sports. He worked at a site called Sportico.com. He spent a lot of time researching this from a journalistic perspective. And he's going to come in and he's going to talk to us, and we're going to present him with our thesis, and we're going to get his feedback on this. He's the guy who literally wrote the book, and we're going to be reading this book. You're going to get this book for free. All the resources that you're going to get in this course are for free. And we're going to get his input on whether or not we are headed down the right path in developing our thesis and developing our strategy. Once we get his feedback, we're going to develop that strategy, and then we're going to publish it. Could be a paper, could be a podcast, it could be a video. Publishing platforms are not the problem. Content is the problem. There's a lot of junk out there. But there's also a lot of good quality content. We want to produce that content and publish it. And that's it. That's 7 steps to becoming a working, publishing, think tank academic. It's not too bad for a free program. But I know what you're thinking. It sounds good. But what's in it for me? We're going to talk a little bit about that. What's in it for you and comes in 2 forms. There are intangible benefits and there are tangible benefits, right? We are a instant gratification society. We understand what tangible benefits are. But from my experience, it is the intangible benefits in life which are the most important to achieve. So I'm going to ask Kelly to talk a little bit about the intangible benefits of our program.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. Just a couple things of many highlighted. I mentioned them in my intro, building some of these academic and professional skills, ones that are not only coveted by think tanks, but also in any profession, the ability to work collaboratively, to dissect, analyze, and conceptualize information, to read, write, and research. All of those things are going to be invaluable to you as you move forward in your academic and eventually professional careers. And you'll be able to hone them and also learn them with the foundational courses that will help develop all of our scholars. Also, you have the opportunity to start exploring some careers of interest. Everyone, when they introduce themselves, you range from the arts to STEM, to foreign languages in your interests. And so you'd be able to kind of take a dry run at is a think tank, is this world of policy and social change something that you're really passionate about? And if it is, you already have a head start. If it's not, then you've already identified that and you can put your energies towards other pursuits. Also, Matt and I have both talked about it. in our introductions and throughout this program is personal growth and how important that is, and learning to work with others, to challenge yourself, to think outside the box and think outside your own perspective. You're expanding your perspective of the world and policy and how you can start to make a change. And all those things we felt were some of the highlights of the intangible benefits that you'd be able to get out of this program and being a part of it, in addition to the tangible benefits that are super important, that I will throw back to Matt to go over.
Thanks, Cal. The tangible benefits are the benefits that we can take away. We can touch, we can feel, we can walk away from this experience with. The first two are very, very important to your academic careers. The first is a resume, and this program is a serious resume building exercise. Listen, be a lifeguard, wait tables, work at Six Flags. Those are great character building jobs. I did them all. But do yourself a favor and do a little research on the value of internships or mentoring programs. Get as much experience to as many different careers and career paths and individuals in those career paths as possible. How do you do that? Well, you get a professional and academic resume together. And something like think tank research associate sounds pretty good on a resume, and it will tend to catch people's attention because it will tell them that you are serious about whatever question you are asking them. Then you take that resume and you present that resume and you network. That's it. You go out there and you meet people. Being a high achiever, it will allow you to walk through many doors. But it's your academic and your professional network that's going to open those doors for you. And this program will help you do that. Let me say that again. You guys are bright. That has gotten you to this point. And you will be able to walk through any door presented. But that door needs to be opened, or somebody needs to point you in the direction of that door. And those individuals are your academic and your professional network, whether that's a trusted teacher or a mentor or a college professor. That is the straightest, easiest, most efficient path to success. And in order to get on that path, putting together a professional academic resume is very important. Next thing this program gets you, letter of recommendation. Raise your hand if you love a good letter of recommendation. I do. I ask people to write me letters of recommendation all the time. And I haven't looked for a job in like 12 years, but I'll still call up a friend or a colleague and I'll say, hey, dude, do me a favor. Can you write me a letter of recommendation? And they say, well, yeah, cool. What are you applying for? No, I said nothing. I just really want somebody to say nice things about me. So I'd appreciate it if you write a letter of recommendation. Letter of recommendations are very important in addition to making you feel good about yourself and your pursuits. They help separate you from other individuals when you're applying to colleges, when you're applying to jobs. If you are a high achieving student in this program, and we have no reason to believe you wouldn't be because you're a high achieving student in other areas of your academic career, we will give you a letter of recommendation with no questions asked. In addition to that letter of recommendation, we are hosting a $500 scholarship for our inaugural class, our inaugural research group. That means that for the 8 to 12 students who will be accepted into this class, you will be the exclusive applicants for that scholarship upon successful graduation of high school. Right. So you're one of at most 12 people in a think tank research group. You've been accepted to the inaugural program. At the end of that program, if you wish to apply for the scholarship, you have a 1 in 12 chance of getting it. That scholarship right now is only $500 because we're a startup. We don't want to overpromise. I can personally guarantee the $500. I have a Derek Jeter rookie card that I've been holding on to for a long time. And if we don't increase that scholarship through revenues and donations, I'm going to sell the Derek Jeter rookie card and offset some of that. So you have my personal guarantee. I hope it grows. I hope it grows to 1,000. I hope it grows to 2,500. I hope it grows to 5,000. But at this point, you can guarantee, and we'll play this back in 2 or 3 years, that the 12 individuals who are in our inaugural research group will have the exclusive opportunity to apply for that scholarship. Speaking of money, you guys are going to produce content. You should get paid for that content. It's no different than putting a video on YouTube, no different than putting a skit on TikTok. If you're a content producer, you should get paid for your content. It doesn't matter if you're 14, 15, or 81. As part of a research group, you will hopefully publish research. If that research is monetized, you will share in a portion of that monetization. Now, listen, I don't know what the value of that is. Could be 0. Could be 1,000. I don't know what the market for that type of work, for that type of content is, but you do have our model to benefit from, because our model allows our content producers to receive the benefits, the financial benefits of their research. In addition to that, you get preferred status. You will have preferred enrollment status for future sessions. Like I said, we plan to have a number of research cohorts launched over the next 2 to 3 years. And as long as you're still in high school, you will have the ability to apply for those and join those research groups. And as alumni of the program, you'll get first dibs to VIP enrollment. But just as importantly, as an alumni of the program, you will become eligible to become a fellow of our advisory board. I don't know how many of you are familiar with corporate structure, but most businesses have a board of directors or an advisory board. All right, give me a hand, thumbs up if you're into business. All right, cool. So a business's primary leadership structure is created through a board of directors. Our board of directors, we call them advisory board members, are experts in areas. Okay, political scientists like Kelly, climate change scientists, teachers, professors, political scientists, all form this advisory board. But we've kept 2 seats open on that board for high school and college students who are alumni of our program. Why? Because this program is built for high school and college students. We want the voice of those individuals to tell us where the program should be headed in the future. Now, some of the perks of being an advisory board member: you get paid. It's a paid position. Okay. It's not a ton of money. It's a couple $100 per meeting. Maybe there's 4, maybe there's 8, maybe there's 12 meetings per year. It's all done virtually. But you get paid, you get compensated for your time. But just as importantly, or more importantly, you are sitting next to experts in the fields that you want to pursue. And those experts are colleagues of yours. Those experts are equals, because you all have the same vote, you all have the same voice, and you'll get the opportunity to pick their brain. But just as importantly, they will have the opportunity to hear your voice as well. It empowers you to be part of an infrastructure that is meant to elicit change. And that's what the Teen Think Tank is all about. It's all about empowerment. It's all about providing you with a voice in the future that you will have to inherit. Yes, one other tangible benefit is a $5 Dunkin' Donuts gift card. I promised that the first 20 registrants who attend would receive a $5 Dunkin' Donuts gift card, and I will email that out to everybody this morning. A few notes on that, however. If you did not know that or did not realize that, props to you for showing up here. Congratulations. You just got an unintended benefit. But secondly, there were more than 20 students who registered and attended these info sessions over the last few days. As a matter of fact, students 21 and 22 are in this session right now. So unfortunately, two of you guys did not qualify for the free Dunkin' Donuts gift card. However, you can't be an organization that's built on teen empowerment and look to jettison two guys. So as long as you ask a question in the next session, in the next segment, you will automatically get the Dunkin' Donuts gift card, regardless of whether you were number 21 or number 22 on the reservation list. Sound fair to everybody? Give a thumbs down if you don't think that's fair. All right, very good. I appreciate that. It's a very kind and forgiving group. And here we go. This is slide number 11. Questions. As promised, only 11 slides till the end. But before we get to the end, I do want to open up for questions. I will answer any question that you have. What is my favorite color? Orange. What is my favorite food? Neapolitan pizza. How old was I when I went bald? Technically 22, but I didn't shave until I was 30. It was a rough 8 years. So, what kind of questions do you have? What can we answer for you? And what can we do to make you part of the teen think tank? Yeah, that's a great question. So we've got a general pool of topics. Um, Climate change is going to be very high on our list. Uh, Racial inequality, gender inequality, women's rights, voting rights. Kel, what else am I missing?
Uh, what did we
Food
talk about?
insecurity.
Food insecurity, immigration, foreign
Drug abuse.
policy, drug abuse, housing inequality,
If it's
and
an issue,
also
go ahead, Kel.
as we're building this, and especially with the inaugural class, we would love your feedback. We're creating these ideas based on what we see in the worlds that we work in as important topics, but we also, this is about empowering students to make change. So we would be very open to your feedback, as you're a part of the inaugural class, on what would you like to see, what interests you, what are you thinking about, what do you hear about in as wherever you get the news or however you're informed. And we're open to all of that, to create those kind of programs in the future.
And just to give you an idea on how those programs get developed, that advisory board, that executive board that I had mentioned, they are going to be experts in particular fields, and they will help us figure out where the current research is, where the current policy problems are, where the current need for this type of input is. As I mentioned, on that board will be a minimum of 2 students. So to emphasize Kelly's point, your voices will also determine what we do. And it doesn't even need to be as formal as that. If you come to me after this presentation and send me an email and set up a meeting tomorrow and say, Matt, listen, my community actually has a legitimate problem that we are seeking solutions for, that's fair game as well. It doesn't need to be a global issue. Communities are local. problems start in our communities? Very good question. So the default board will have representation from each of the major policy sectors, right? So public health, uh, environmental science, political science, law, education, women's studies, global studies. We'll have, it's almost like the United Nations of thought leaders. We want to have an expert from each of the fields that affect our society because we want to create a conversation in each of the fields that affects our society. And we want to examine the policy in that. That's a great question. That was not a question that I would have thought to ask. However, it is the question that has been asked in every single information session. So Jaylene, props for you for asking it here. The short answer to that question is the future research groups are tuition-based programs. You need to pay to be part of those research groups. The longer answer to that question is we understand the value of this programming to students like you, and we want students like you in these programs. So at a minimum, we're going to provide 2 fully funded scholarship students in each program, in each research group. Now, that might mean 4 students get a half tuition scholarship because, you know, they can afford it, but they've earned it, or they've earned it, but they can't afford it. We're going to hold a minimum of two seats for pro bono placement into the program. Now, you still have to qualify, you still have to apply, you still have to be accepted into that research group. But we think it's very important to have high performing and high quality students, regardless of whether or not they can meet the financial requirements of the program. So there is, as far as the public is concerned, the public facing deliverable, in my opinion, is the coolest part of this program, is that we're actually going to create a public policy framework. Okay. And we're going to create content around the publication of that framework. Specifically, we will record our research group sessions, and we will take that information in those discussions and we will put together a podcast based on that information, that content that we're able to deliver internally during our conversations, right? Every week for 12 weeks, we're going to have 3 hours of recorded audio of individuals talking about a particular subject. All right. So I went to law school, so my math skills suck, but 12 weeks times 3 hours, that's 36 hours, right? That's 36 hours of content. We're probably able to deliver a 60-minute, 90-minute podcast episode or series of podcast episodes based on that content alone. So right then and there, you're already positively contributing to the society's understanding of this particular policy that you're investigating. Then we're going to drill it down a step further. And then we're going to take those conversations and put them into a policy framework. All right. Google policy framework when you get a second. It's a very simple, digestible, user-friendly document that says, here is the problem. Here are the obstacles that are causing this problem to be affecting our society, our community, our individual cohort, etc. Here's how we propose that you tackle this problem, society, community, cohort. And these are our recommendations on the future implementation of possible solutions. Now, whether we come up with an exact solution or not really just depends on how hard the research group works and what they're able to come to a understanding of. But at the very least, at the end of the day, you're going to publish a paper that gives an entire synopsis of your research group's understanding of the problem. And right there, now you've just become a published scholar. You've
And
put
Jack,
go ahead, Kel.
sorry, Jack, just as Matt mentioned before, you have rights to your own publications. So what you do with that in the future is up to you. I mean, maybe I'm making up a scenario. Maybe your athletic director is talking about, addressing, athletes in your school wanting to make a social justice statement. Maybe you don't agree with it, and maybe you tweet him or talk to him or share the content that you've created and said, "Oh, look, I've looked into this. I've researched this. That this is all sides of the story." And this is why I feel you should maybe reopen the discussion or look at this in a different perspective, or I'd like to be a part of the conversation. I produced research and content on this. It gives you credibility. I mean, how many of your classmates can say, I've thoroughly researched social justice and sport protest? Or maybe you tweet it out if you see it on Twitter, somebody talking about it. It's just one scenario, but that is your work. That is sort of one of the intangible benefits. You've expanded your knowledge on this topic, and you can talk a lot more knowledgeably about it. And why not share your publication, your research? I'm on LinkedIn and different things. If I see somebody talking about gender violence in the MENA region, or the Yazidi women who have been talked about quite a bit, I jump in and say, I've published papers on this, I've written on this, this is my opinion. You can join that sort of academic conversation. So what you do with that is really up to you. It's your work.
Yeah, a big part of what we will do will be international. As a matter of fact, just kind of running down the laundry list of research topics, boy, at least half of them are international or global type perspectives. Now, don't forget, within each of those general issues, you can peel away and talk about dozens of sub issues, but climate change is going to be a really big one for us, and a really big focus. There will be global studies, and a lot of what we've seen happening over the last few years and over the last few months in terms of voter rights involves an international landscape. So there will be a good amount of global perspective on the topics that we cover. And that's actually right up Kelly's alley. So Kel, if you got any more insight on that and some of the things that we would be able to cover, by all means.
I love the global perspective. So when Matt and I talk, I'm usually like up here global, and then he's like down here a micro level. But I think I completely agree with what Matt said, and there are plenty of topics where you can look at local, national, and global. And I think that the sky's the limit. So just because I look global and Matt looks local doesn't mean that you wouldn't come in with a different perspective and say, wow, I see how this cross section works, and how are we thinking about it on this level. Our goal is not to tell you how to think. Our goal is to give you the resources and allow you to expand your perspective and digest this information, and you start formulating hypotheses and conceptual frameworks. And how do you view this as a perspective of a teenager, as a young adult? I'm so excited to hear your perspectives, because I think they're going to be fascinating and come from a very different place than than myself or Matt or any of the other scholars or adults that are working on this. And I think that's what's just going to be brilliant. You're adding a different layer to the dialogue. So if you can figure out how to make this like intergalactically, let's add that level too, and study it on that level. There is no, and Matt, correct me if I'm getting out of bounds here, but there are no boundaries to how you can and should think. We want to hear your perspective, bring it into the mix. We're going to sift it all out, digest it, and then together come up with, given all this information, what are these things that we should really be considering moving forward? What does a good path forward look like? And you're gonna create that.
I have not given a sales pitch for our winter session. This is an info session about the think tank in general, and that's really, I just wanted to get people to understand the concept. But I am going to do a sales pitch for the winter session, sports and social change, social protest and sports course, because even if you don't find value in social protest sports dynamic and the dialogue that's going on inside of that microcosm of society, there is still benefit to be taken out of that research cohort. One, you'll get the foundational skills that are necessary to pursue some other topic, the communication skills, the decision-making skills, the critical thinking skills. But more importantly, you can add a unique perspective to the research group. Maybe you could care less about sports, but you have a passion for the voices behind the need for change when it comes to racial inequality. Well, you don't need to be a sports fan to be able to engage in a conversation with individuals who are looking to create a plan to help athletes better propel the voices and messages behind the racial equality movement, right? As a matter of fact, you will probably be one of the more valuable members of that particular research cohort because you will have a different perspective. You'll have a different voice. So if you came in and you just kind of wanted to hear a little bit about a think tank, I hope we answered those questions that you had. And if you came in and thought, well, listen, I just want to hear what they might offer next. I'm not super interested in this social protest and sports topic. I hope maybe now you can rethink and maybe pivot on that position and think not how that topic does not interest you, but how you could lend to the discussion of that topic, how you can lend a perspective that may be absent if you get a certain type of individual who proliferates that research group, right? The goal here is to have as much perspective and communication as possible. And sometimes you got to be the oddball out to make the conversation meaningful. You got to add the perspective, right? Nobody ever goes home and talks about the boring Thanksgiving dinner that they had where everybody just agreed and talked about the same thing. But everybody goes home and talks about Thanksgiving with Uncle Fred, who is a conspiracy theorist and has a view on everything. And that view is 100% opposite of your view. What we're looking to do is have an interesting Thanksgiving conversation without crazy Uncle Fred. That's our goal. Fair enough? Cool. So the question necessarily wouldn't, the answer to that question isn't necessarily where is the place we would publish it. It's where wouldn't we publish it? Fair enough? Ideally, from kind of a 10,000 foot view, we'd love to get the reputation, get the partnerships with research institutions and research colleges and organizations that house this type of information, and be able to partner with them and have a final resting place for our work. But until we get there, listen, the greatest piece of American writing was done by a bunch of drunken rogue Englishmen fighting a revolutionary war, and they did it at a pub and they published it on a bulletin board, right? So where we publish is secondary to what we publish. We want to be proud of what we do. We want to stand behind what we do. And we want to be able to look around the room and say, go ahead, knock that down. You can't. That's our primary goal. But yeah, hey, it would be cool if, I don't know, Harvard Law Press wanted to publish one of our articles. Yeah, hell yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. And again, that kind of gets into Kelly's wheelhouse in terms of her expertise and her passions. And you guys, one, are reinforcing our approach to this, because the topics you guys are bringing up are the topics that we've already identified as the next steps. So it makes us feel good that we're on the right path, and you guys are kind of identifying the topics that we have already earmarked as important. So it tells us we're doing the right thing. So they are coming. They are coming. In what order really depends on demand. You know, if we're spending our time going out and recruiting people for, you know, to fill the seats in these think tanks, then it becomes a little more difficult for us to launch other programs. But if we've got people knocking on our door and you know, and Jack, James, you say, hey, listen, I got 4 friends who are super interested in this topic. Can we put something together? Well, then those are 4 students we don't have to go out and create. So those are hours and days we can spend on creating the curriculum for the particular topics that you guys want to see. We're not posturing by saying that this is an opportunity to empower and to give teens a voice. That's what we rely on 100% wholeheartedly. So bring those conversations to the forefront, and we can tell you where we stand on them. And in most cases, it will be, we stand right there with you. Cool. Cool.